Welcome to this training program. I'm Tina Ramirez, the founder and president of Hardwired Global, and we train leaders all around the world to defend the fundamental human right to freedom of thought, conscience, religion, or belief. Now that we've experienced a conceptual change about the freedom of religion or belief, we will review the steps we went through and some of the key concepts were addressed through this lesson. In this lesson, you will learn how to recognize the key concepts of freedom of religion or belief and how to address any misconceptions that may arise among your students using a variety of different educational methods and tools that can help you build conceptual change in your students. Let's begin by engaging your students. In a moment, I want you to choose a partner, and each of you will take turns observing one another. For the first round, one person will close their eyes while the other person changes 3 things about their appearance. Once you've made those changes, you can open your eyes and try to discover what is different about them. Now, I want you to switch, and the other person will take turns changing their appearance. How did it feel to make so many changes? Did any of the changes you made change your beliefs or sense of identity? What are some of the things that make people resistant to change? There are many reasons why others do not want to embrace religious freedom. And as the trainer, I'm constantly listening to the conversations you have to see what you're afraid of and to find out ways to help you respond. My goal is always to help you develop new ways of thinking that will address your fears, your misconceptions, or your biases and lead you back to the key concepts of religious freedom. For instance, here are some of the things that I might hear and some ways to question those ideas and pose alternative views. Religious freedom will undermine my religion or the country's national religion or our morality. How can you respond when people think that you're being disloyal? What would happen if no one could believe something that contradicted another person's belief in your society? Maybe somebody would say that religious freedom will allow extremists to spread ideas and impose them on me. Or maybe someone might say that religious freedom would allow people to justify discriminating me because of my beliefs. As you listen for these misconceptions that people have, you can begin to respond to them with the key concepts of freedom of religion or belief. The key concepts like no one can be discriminated on the basis of their religion under Article 18. How would you respond to these common fears about religious freedom? The best way to measure these fears is always against the plumb line of Article 18, the universal standard for religious freedom. We will discuss this further when we get to evaluations. When religious freedom is protected, countries benefit in many ways that can be useful when building an argument for this freedom. Now, I want you to take a look at this picture and tell one another, what do you see? Do you see the same thing? Is one person right and the other wrong? Can you help each other see the picture from your perspective? You see, conceptual change is about helping people see from a different perspective. It's not about changing what they believe. The pedagogy that we're using to teach about religious freedom is not meant to change your religion, your beliefs, or your sense of religious identity. Conceptual change is a pedagogy to help you develop new ways of thinking about the deeply held beliefs you have and to reconcile those beliefs with the standard of religious freedom for everyone. There are several stages that help us create a conceptual change about religious freedom. Let's review them in more detail. First, you're going to access prior models of understanding. Second, you may experience dissonance when you're posed with a new problem that challenges your preconceived ideas or beliefs. By posing a challenge, you help to create tension between what your students believe and the new information presented. And this leads them to new models of understanding. Third, you begin to construct new ideas. In this example, when you construct new ideas, you begin to make sense of the new information and fit it into a new model or frame of reference for thinking about the issue. Fourth, you begin to criticize and revise your ideas based on the new information. This often happens in a classroom environment where students are encouraged to identify, contrast, and debate the adequacy of competing ways of understanding the problem. And then finally is the evaluation of ideas. This is where students should be able to apply the new ways of thinking to situations around them to solve problems through directed action. Now, as an example, you may ask your students a question. Why is it possible for an object to be both sacred and common at the same time? And as your students discuss this question, here are some additional questions to help them think more deeply about the 5 stages that people go through in conceptual change. First, can you state your own ideas and why you're attracted to them? Are your ideas consistent? Are your ideas different from others? Can both be right? Do you recognize any limitations of your ideas? And do you want to adjust them? Can you explain the difference between understanding an idea and believing in an idea? The process you went through to explain your idea and develop a new idea with others is the process of conceptual change that you are working to replicate in your lessons with students. Now let's review. The role of the trainer is critical. They must be able to hear what students are saying as they take in new information and work through it. They also must help their students through the process of questioning the soundness of their ideas and models for understanding. The trainer must create an atmosphere where students feel safe to explore their ideas and consider new ways of thinking. It's going to take courage on the part of the students, and that is important in a classroom environment. A key ingredient is being able to pose problems relevant to the information you want to convey. This is where analogies are helpful, analogies like the fruit, because analogies help break down complex information. Next, you need to check for understanding. Look for moments when the information seems to click, when a light bulb appears. Now, during our practice lessons, I heard one participant share a story about something she saw on the playground and how unprepared she felt to respond to the situation. It was the same question that we posed to at the beginning of these lessons. So we devised new lessons and made adjustments to help her work through that challenge. It was the challenge of the playground example. Let's review how we built a deeper understanding of religious freedom through the fruit activity. First, we accessed the prior models of understanding. In the first activity, you described your fruit based on what you knew about religion. And when you did that, we were able to identify any misconceptions you may have had about others. Next, you went through a process of dissonance in the different problems that we posed. The fruit had to face persecution, and then they learned that they landed on an island where they thought they would find freedom, but instead, they found people representing the fruit they had just fled from. They had to experience what it was like to be a minority and have their rights denied. They experienced the fears that many people face who live without this freedom. Next, you went through a process of constructing new ideas. The fruit began to think of ways to live together to survive on the island, recognizing some of the basic aspects of religious freedom. And then you went through a process of criticism and revision of your new ideas. You began to dialogue with one another and test your new ideas, working through the prior beliefs and new information, and coming up with new rules and ways to live together, rules for the freedom of religion. And then you began a process of evaluating your ideas. And in the final activity, you had to go back to the places where other fruit fled from and convince your co-religionists to protect their religious freedom. And by applying it to a new situation, you were able to show your ability to articulate your new understanding of this human right.